Welcome to another episode of Does This Offend You? Today we talk about Elon Musk buying Twitter, Facebook misinformation, the Ministry of Truth, and how to suck dick. And all of that relating to censorship. I don't get it either. Stay tuned. This is going to be a wild one. Thanks for watching.
What do I have to say to make some money? What do I have to say to make some money? No offense.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. Another fantastic episode. And today is a very special episode because we have a very special guest. Hot off his trial with Amber Heard, Johnny Depp is in the building. Say hi, Johnny.
Johnny Depp.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, I'm mistaken. That's our friend Chase, not Johnny Depp. But
You can tell the difference because Chase has his fingers.
Oh. A true guitarist would always cut their fingers off. That's the true sign.
Yeah.
These are horrible.
It's nice because me and Vlad have the tips of our penises cut off and Chase cut off the tip of his fingers.
and I'm just cut.
I'm
it.
Yeah.
It's 'cause
No, I am
you're-
uncut though. I'm Canadian, so I got it all there.
Exactly.
You got that Canadian
So-
sausage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Canadian bacon all the way.
As you can tell,
Do you know why Jewish women like Jewish men? Because their penises are 10% off.
Wow.
unbelievable. As you can tell, Chase fits in with all our depravity.
Oh, I'm not gonna make it any better.
Yeah, if you were hoping for something more refined, you're not going to get it this episod.
I thought this was family friendly.
No, not today. So,
No, that's why I'm
Vlad.
not. That's a different trial.
Vlad, please indulge us. What are we talking about today?
So today we get to discuss censorship. Censorship on a government level and a corporate level in light of Elon Musk buying Twitter. What it means for all of us, how it affects us all, and yeah, why censorship, for me at least, I don't know about everybody else, I don't think it's a good thing. But we will discuss and see how everybody else feels about it as we delve into this topic.
As we do. Great intro. So how do you feel about Elon Musk buying Twitter?
Well, personally, Twitter for me, I don't really use that much. And I've only kind of had more of an uptick on it because I've been curious to see how people are responding to the whole purchase. So that's why I kind of creep back onto that just to watch all the people freaking out. I've been watching in the news and how different sides of the aisle are once having like a meltdown essentially. The other ones pretty much like, oh, it's payback time, baby, type of shit. So I personally have very minimal interest in Twitter, but a lot of people use it as Elon Musk called it the town square, where they basically write their thoughts and opinions and feelings on there and make it public for the whole world to see, and then they basically dwell on people's responses, their retweets, criticisms, all that stuff. Now, the issue was that Twitter before this point was very, I guess you want to call it blue, like the bird. And they were trying their best to wave the whole entire we're a company so we can censor people that we consider to be dangerous to society, who say things that we don't agree with, and who, in their words, spread misinformation. Which, at this point, it seems like that might be changing. Might be. I don't know what Musk plans to do, but we'll see.
He's already made one big move. The executive that was in charge after Jack Dorsey left, which I don't know how much power that really had, he was the guy that, like Kowal or something, who said that, this is not about free speech. If anything, we want to lean people towards the direction we think the conversation should go, which is a very anti-free speech, very obvious, almost like, we know what we want to say. If you don't like what we want to say, get out of the room and we'll go in the conversation we want to go, politically or any other way. So he just got fired, I think, yesterday or today. So that's already showing, whatever you want to say about what he's doing, this motion is going to expose so many people who are going to prove, are you for more talk or are you for my talk? So that's going to come forward very quickly.
So you guys are you guys believe that Twitter was actually some sort of biased entity, so it's only what they wanted to see on their feeds, or they would govern their
It wasn't
app
about belief.
in such a way.
It wasn't belief. It was what they were saying for the longest time. They made it clear, if you don't follow their guidelines and thinking style, you're not going to be welcome here. We're going to ban you, and that's it.
Yeah, and there were a
There
lot
wasn't
of the Joe Rogan podcast had on Tim Pool, and they talked to Jack Dorsey, and they talked to their top person, and they really got into that. And there's been so many times when they've tried to, Twitter's tried to say, hey, we're not doing any of that. We're being very, we're being very open. We're just, removing all the people that are obviously breaking the rules, and there's no shadow banning, which I think after 5-6 years we know that's all bull now. That's absolutely crazy. It's obviously a lean. And, the political explosion happening on the left side right now is proving that there was always a lean. And now that they see that it's going to go away, they're running. It's almost like when Twitter dropped Trump, when the right was like, we're not going to touch this anymore. It's like the exact opposite. Except someone didn't leave, someone came on to change all the rules. So this is just going to be like a literally watching a bird on fire in a car crash. It's going to be so much fun to watch. What the hell's going on?
And it's honestly not just Twitter at this point. It's also, you can say Facebook's also falling in that regard because, as you brought up, Trump being booted essentially off all these major platforms definitely brought that conversation more in light. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I agree with everything that Trump has done in his presidency, but yeah.
Yeah, but they removed a president.
Yeah.
Remove the man. They removed a president.
The thing is, I remember back when Twitter, or I guess the employees, really wanted them to get rid of Donald Trump, and then everybody and all the higher ups are like, why the hell would we do that? Do you know how much traffic we get because of this guy? It doesn't matter what he's saying. But then the moment he wasn't a president, he was almost immediately banned. And I feel like it's not the people in the upper offices that want to do this stuff. I feel like it's the employees. It's always the employees that are trying to push their political agenda on everybody. Even Facebook talked about it, how, oh, we just have these people hired that do all the fact checking. And I think Twitter also, it was the employees. Spotify, all the employees wanted Joe Rogan off. And then all the CEOs were like, why the hell do we do that? We literally pay him more than we pay all of you combined. He's going to carry this platform. So if you don't like it, you can just leave. And then they protested and Spotify just kind of laughed it off. So I don't think it's even the companies themselves. It's the employees that are just, they act like they're some kind of like political heroes or some kind of martyr that they work for these companies and they have to protect the platform from anything that they don't agree with. But I guarantee you, all of these billionaires that run these companies, there's no fucking way they believe in the same things that their employees do. They're rich. They know better.
Oh yeah, are we at the time now we can swear? Is that cool?
Yeah. We can always
You've been at that time since we started recording. Go ahead.
Ah, yeah, suck me off. Perfect. Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. So right now we're seemingly focusing mainly on the corporate aspect, not the government yet, but where do we draw the line where we can say that corporation has the right to, within reason, censor somebody versus where they can't? Because, the government, quote unquote, you can't, the beauty of the United States is that we can criticize our government, we can criticize and say things that are on our mind within reason. Like, you can't threaten somebody, you can't threaten the United States president because, of course, you'll have fucking agents at your house.
And you can't incite violence or panics. You can't yell fire in an elevator. I've heard all the same bullshit before. I think that when it comes to censorship, I mean, I don't think censorship at all is morally okay, but if you run a private organization and it's your business, you can do whatever the hell you want. I don't really care. That's the beauty of capitalism and competition.
So you're in favor of censorship on Twitter?
I'm not in favor of censorship. I'm in favor of letting private corporations do whatever the hell they want. It's their platform. And just like YouTube is starting to get some pushback from Rumble, and Rumble wants to now compete with Spotify and try to swoop on Joe Rogan if they ban any more of his episodes, same thing could have happened with Twitter. But instead, someone bought out Twitter and said, fuck it, I'm opening it up. But at the end of the day, like, private businesses can do whatever the hell they want. I'm not going to tell them how to run their business. If they think it's going to be beneficial for them, cool. Remember when OnlyFans decided to ban porn. How long did that last? 2 days.
Yeah, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, it was literally their entire platform. That's all they were known. That's like
To be fair, it wasn't porn. It was
but
it was nudity and sex in public places.
Oh,
Yeah, but
that's like that's enough. Like
No.
that's enough for me. Like, give me the whole picture and get out.
Yeah, the thing is, it's no different from Tinder banning hookups. You can't meet with people if you want to hook up with them. That's your fucking platform.
No, it's about love. It's about finding love, obviously, with a stranger that
Exactly.
can kidnap you. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the feeling of true sincerity in a
So, yeah.
relationship.
Exactly. So my stance is private businesses can do whatever they want, make whatever decision they want. And if their bottom line goes down and they take it back, we can laugh at them, but we got our platform back. If it works for them, cool. Their job isn't to like be the moral heroes of the world. It's their job to make money.
So you don't think what are your thoughts on Elon Musk purposely buying Twitter just to make the censorship go away?
I mean, I think that's awesome because I support his position on that. I don't like censorship.
I think
sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm okay
I think he saw the business, the growth opportunity of changing that. The $46 billion for a meme just seems 44, unless the taxes come in, seems a little too crazy for him for just that reason. He must have seen just how much they could grow if he removed all of this crap from the system. And I completely agree with the idea of that. It's with what you're saying, Omid, which was censorship is a business model where you can make the choice of how much you want to go or not. It's going to affect your business. If you think it's good for you, great. I think the public problem with censorship has always been the hypocrisy. 100%. If Twitter decided, we can't show porn, which they do for some reason, Tumblr doesn't anymore, and that was their decision, and it screwed them over. But that's a decision they made, and they owned it. If you own your censorship and you mean it and you follow it through, I don't think people would care as much. It's the fact it's an obvious hypocritical lie what they're actually doing.
Right, and I think that's the bigger issue that people have with it. Hypocrisy.
I wouldn't care if Twitter was like, hey, we're only going to say stuff about, Jehovah's Witnesses today. It's Jehovah's Witness week. If you say anything else, we'll just shadow ban you. It'd be like, all right, if you actually do it, that's your prerogative. But it's, but if they snuck in hundreds of secret tweets going on and they made up all these things, you'd be like, well, that's bullshit. You're not doing it right. You told us you're going to have a secret Jehovah's Witness week on my Jehovah's Witness week. Be honest with me. It's the honesty of it all. And there's plenty of places that do it. Like if you do a Christian chat, I think censoring things that aren't Christian related, fair. You do anything like that, a children's show, for example, you can't say certain things. You want to censor the way certain people say things. There's consistency with that. But if this show next door is having everyone take their clothes off for the kids, and everyone's like, let's not look at that one, that's different, then we get mad.
Right. And the thing is, like, I am against censorship on a moral basis, but I also really, really like Andrew Schultz's stance when it comes to censorship, which said it's great for comedy because the more things that you make taboo and you censor, that's more ammunition for comedians because the comedian's job is to poke holes in absurdities, and if you're telling them they can't say or do something, they're gonna do it. And that's what makes it funny because it's almost like the shock value and the taboo of what they're doing. And it kind of makes us chuckle, especially when at the end of the day, you can see like, oh, nothing happened. It was just a joke. And I still broke that social rule.
Yeah.
So I personally, if they want to censor, cool. That just gives more business to people that are in the business of being funny.
Interesting. Danny, you've been quiet. What's on your mind?
Well, so far I've pretty much agreed with everyone here. I feel like Twitter or any other platform needs to have an identity first before they can slap the moniker of censorship. Because, as you said, Elon Musk bought the company and now wants to open it up, like for actual free speech. But before that, Twitter, like Chase said, like hypocritically was like, this is a space where people can just say what they want, in 280 characters or less, as it was. But they were going ahead and they were censoring people, which I agree. So far, 100% agree with everybody here. Censorship sucks. I don't want to be censored. I don't want this podcast to be censored. Myself, I don't want my thoughts to be censored in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to bastardize any of my ideas in any regard. But, and here's the big but, because now this is where I'm going to derail this conversation. If Twitter had originally been operating under the assumption that they are really a free speech platform, and they weren't going to ban anybody because there's nothing, you can't say anything wrong, would you have agreed with them banning Donald Trump?
Could you say that opening part again?
Okay.
Because I don't like what we were talking about. I'm confused.
Right. So if Twitter had operated like, so we acknowledge the fact that Twitter was hypocritically, shadow banning people, or like people who didn't really align with their own opinions, the people behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
If they were actually operating fairly and justly, and they were okay with everyone's free speech, whatever they want to say, and they would you be okay with them banning someone like Donald Trump for what he was saying, even though they acknowledge the fact that it's a free speech platform? Is there a person? I'm sorry, let me just hone this in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Are there special causes for actually limiting free speech?
Yeah, I mean, not to bring the same tone again,
right?
It's
yeah,
violence, incitement, which that was the argument for removing him, which was his presence incited violence. Now
Gotcha.
they directed it towards January 6th, saying what he did was inexcusable, but the actual examples of incitement came from his speech beforehand, which I won't go into that. That's a whole other thing, but he didn't actually do it on Twitter. That was the problem. What he did was not much farther than what anyone else was doing. And to your example there, if they were really consistent and they banned him, there'd be so many people and so many politicians banned for the same thing. There are so many insightful language styles that are used by so many of the politicians. I mean, Maxine Waters uses it all the time. She constantly uses, there's that famous clip of her saying, we're follow them into restaurants, follow them in gas stations, get in their face, don't let them go anywhere. Something to that effect. Yeah, I mean, every politician uses fiery language, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've been doing that since, some of the first presidential runs. Some of the earliest newspapers in the 1700s, is it 1700s, 1800s, if it's 17 back? You get what I mean. The old famous records back there, they were calling each other poop heads and nostril dumpers. Back in nostril dumper was a great one, but they were calling each other horrible names and were doing such slap journalism for the first couple presidents. This has been forever. This is nothing new. But yeah,
you're talking politician to politician,
yeah. I think it was
Yeah.
Jefferson had a competing press against Adams, and they would literally call each other some of the worst names possible. While they were going against each other in
politics, regardless of the U.S. or whatever. If you go to fucking, as an example, the Ukrainian parliament, Russian parliament, some of the Baltic states, people literally, and the House of Commons, the place where they Congress discuss things, they fist fight each other, throw chairs at one another. There's some funny ass videos of those political meetings going on.
Yeah, this isn't new. The aspect of throwing in a historical example from our first presidents is sort of a justification of anyone who would say, well, back in the day, there was much more decorum to a presidency. Bullshit.
No, that's politics, baby. It's always about trying to undercut your opponent, try to make yourself look better.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. Well, that's well and good, but when you're when you're bringing that out of a bunch of your followers, I feel like the president sits in a special position where they have more power than anyone else, and if they're on Twitter, that power is directed to any other followers on Twitter. That's kind of where I take kind of I don't, like I said, I'm about to be a hypocrite myself because I don't like to be censored, and if I were the president, definitely would not be censored. But there's a certain responsibility that comes with being the president, and you, with a name as polarizing as Trump, I don't really throw him in with the other lot of politicians who use Twitter, to incite stuff or use the fiery language. I feel like Trump sits in his own special class, and if it wasn't Trump, it would be Barack Obama, because we're talking about the president of the United States. It's not like, people don't have to follow politics to understand who these people are and what they're capable of and what power they hold. They're famed by their position. So I I feel like you have to tread carefully with people in that area, because it sucks to say that, because I am being a hypocrite, but
no, and I think that almost leads to a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I forget if you guys have already talked about it, but about how, a lot of the most aggressive incitement of the language of the Donald Trump used on Twitter wasn't as much by people, it was by news media, because it was so good. It was such TMZ slap journalism for everyone to just jump on and say, like, Kofefe was we have this with Biden now. Biden, what was assuming a Shabbat pressure, that old one, and in fact he can't say any words. We'll linger on that, make an entire news story about it for a week and move on. We're doing it with Biden too. It's just not as popular because there's not as many right-wing sources that are large scale. They're all YouTube, which is funny because YouTube stuff's a lot bigger than a lot of news stuff now. Like CNN gets like maybe 100,000 views per show, which is nothing now in retrospect.
So here's a question for you guys. Who do we think is deemable to be, for instance, able to hold the power of censorship in the first place? Let's say as a business, in a private business, who do you think is honestly able to in a balancing manner direct censorship on the populace? Who, like, for COVID, we had COVID, everybody was posting different information constantly, and then you had Facebook, Twitter, whoever else, Instagram, putting up notices saying, oh, this is misinformation, it's fake, here's your source, yada yada, or they would just completely take it down, sometimes even block the person. So who do we deem or ideally think would be able to hold such power in society?
I think
My mother.
I was about to say like the CEO of Baskin Robbins, because I think he can categorize us all into 31 flavors, and that'll knock us all into exactly what we need to do in life.
Yeah. Or we can just let my mom decide. She'll be like, you can't say that, and I'll be like, sorry. I think if what you're saying requires a mother or father or older sibling to put their hand over someone's ears and say, don't listen to this, then we've reached the PG-13 stage, That's that.
Do you guys know John McWhorter very well?
No.
John McWhorter is a language specialist, kind of similar to Noam Chomsky, except his expertise comes more towards the evolution of language in a more... It's a slightly different sense than Noam Chomsky, but he has a whole explanation of how bullying works in a sense of normalcy in people. So say, for example, you have this is totally answering your question in a weird way, Vlad. If you have 3 friends, they hang out, they have similar ways of talking and speaking. Say a 4th friend comes along, and maybe he has a more aggressive tone about things, or he's kind of more nasty. He says, like fucking bitches all the time, and you're like, hey man, that's a bit too much. It's like, all right, sure, fine, move on, and you just keep going, hey dude, cool off, man, have fun. That's those little ticks, those little moments like that. That's social engineering each other to be like, hey, we know what we as a group like. We don't like to go to certain things. It's not bullying. Sometimes it can be bullying if it's very severe, but sometimes it can, which is not always a good thing. It's like a very light form of like patting, like, hey man, that's not cool. Or you make fun of somebody for making a weird joke or doing something weird, so they go more normal towards the group. That whole attitude is how our society functions on a larger scale. It's harder now with the internet because we can break apart so easily in a small network, but you can't just have a single authority. Like how Biden's going to do the minister of truth. That's a whole other conversation. It's so weird.
No, that's the same conversation.
That is the same conversation.
That's the same conversation.
Exactly the same shit. And
oh, no, that is right, because that's the whole thing about... She's going to be literally litigating the entire thing on censorship, censoring the country. But you can't just have one person running that, even if there's a whole team with them. The whole society as a whole will push and ebb and flow, which is, that's where the whole argument of the Civil War came in, which was the new Civil War, which was, are we going to be so divided politically that we're going to just have to segment ourselves? Because we're a humongous country, and with the way the internet has gone and the way we can talk, the way we are, there's no way we can survive at the size that we are with the same ideas.
It's gonna be so hard to enslave the blacks again. I agree.
Holy fuck. Wow. Holy shit.
It would, you know what? To be fair, it would be very difficult to do that now. There's a lot of pushback. I think politically, not in the right tone.
Oh, we're talking about segregation.
But
Do not clip that. Do not clip that, Danny.
No, that would be censoring if I didn't. I have to leave it
no,
in
he
there.
has to leave it in. We know exactly.
Yeah.
We know.
No, I'm saying don't make that into a clip for Instagram or TikTok.
And now you're censoring me? Is that what's happening?
No, Vlad's playing a double because he definitely wants that clipped. That's what's going on.
No, we're gonna see if I'm gonna get censored.
Jesus
Vlad.
No.
So Vlad, how do you feel about censorship? Are there some things that shouldn't be said?
Well, that's the question is...
Oh.
The question, like I said, that's why I brought it
There it
beforehand,
is.
is who would be the kind of... Who do we consider has the power to decree such things like censorship? To say, you're going too far. You
So
are
answer,
Yeah.
So the answer is Danny now. Because you asked him to censor it. So technically.
Out of all of you,
censor
Danny
shit.
would be the one I would be like, if you don't want me to say it, Danny, you know what? I'll fight you for 2 seconds, but I got you. I got
Oh,
you.
I didn't know we were asking for permission.
No, that would defeat the purpose of this podcast. Yeah. No, feel free. Yeah.
We're gonna put Danny in a weird position when he's clipping this thing tonight.
Yeah, I'll put a, you know what? I'll put a simplified tone to your question, Vlad. I think this is interesting. I think if it was a corporation, you can have just one person decide. You can simplify it to just one person if you wanted
But
to.
who in God's name has that right?
But that's it. Let me get there. A
Danny.
corporation, you could do what? Yeah, Danny could do that.
Danny is the corporation.
If it's a corporation, I think you could be as simplified as one person if you wanted to, because it's the corporation's decision. If people don't want to be a part of it, sure. As a government source, that is an insane thought to think that one person should control that amount of power. To control
Right,
how
unless-
people think. Because that's what
Unless we
censoring is.
voted for someone to have that power. I think that's totally different, though. Like, if as the people we decided that we want a certain person and we vote that person to power, automatically they technically should have that power. But like, who the fuck voted for Fauci to tell me to wear a mask everywhere I fucking go after telling me not to do it? You know, I never voted for that piece of shit. That overpaid motherfucker. He's like the highest paid person in that government office, and look how much power they gave him because they realized his position is moot.
Yeah. You know his deal with the AIDS crisis, right?
I don't.
He was one of the officials who very loosely floated around the idea that, hey, so we don't know much, which they did, so we're just going to tell everyone that you could catch AIDS in the air,
Interesting.
which caused so much discrimination by people who had it, because that was not at all, and they knew around that time how it was actually passed on, but he was really pushing the aerosol idea. It caused so many problems.
Just like that, I lost more respect for the guy.
Yeah. That might be simplifying the whole thing too much, but this dude has always been off with everything.
Yeah. So now back to enslaving black people. So is that going to be censored, yes or no? And if you think it should be censored, why?
I'm not saying it's censored. I'm saying not to make it into...
Are you saying censoring the action of enslaving black people? He's saying to be censoring to not
All I'm
slave-
saying is probably not the best idea to make that into a clip to circulate for people to get attention. That's all I'm saying.
Well, now I kind of want to do it because this seems to be all we're talking about, and honestly, it is. It
Well,
kind of
because
it talks
really
about, yeah, it really
it's
puts
the
censorship.
topic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
but you
the
can take that
topic.
out of context entirely and then start a whole entire fucking fire that will be really hard to handle.
Vlad, I'm disappointed in you for trying to put water over this beautiful flame right now.
Yeah. But
Very
hey,
disappointed.
it's your topic, so I guess you can, you have an opinion on that. And I feel like this is just proving that you probably did not think about this as much as you thought. Like, you don't agree with yourself as much as you thought you did.
I agree with censorship being a bad thing, but I'm trying to figure out if there is a limit because I believe that every good thing also has a limit. There should be a limitation to most
So what's the
things.
limitation? What was
That's
the
the,
bound?
I mean, I honestly don't know. That's
Should
what
we
I'm
set a
trying to figure out.
limitation of censorship of speech or censorship of action? In the sense of the discourse we're having, because jokingly we could talk about both, but I think we're talking more about speech and thought more than action.
Well, what do you define action versus speech here?
Speech would be things that people say, the conversations they can have, the action would be saying you cannot, you know, it's a violent action of actually taking it, or even saying, you know, we cannot do abortion, we cannot do surgeries on children for transgender children. These are censorship things where that's a physical censorship of saying we're not allowing that. Although I think that's a misuse of the word censorship to put it in that way.
Or should we censor someone that says, let's start a new holiday, Punch an Asian Day? You know? Perpetuate Asian hate.
We're just all on race issues today, huh? Everybody's
No,
all just,
I just want to see where your line is.
Yeah, it honestly makes the most sense because you want to talk about real censorship. To talk about the stuff no one wants to talk about.
Yeah,
That's what censorship is. You're basically trying to tell people what they can't say because apparently it's too much for them to handle. And I mean,
yeah. And wait, go ahead. I want to see where this is going.
Okay, good.
Well, now I just lost my train of thought. You censored me, you sons of bitches.
Fuck, that's interruption is censorship. Fuck.
Yeah, no, you can throw that word around a lot, but I think basically what like Omid was trying to get to is like you can't. What's the point of free speech if you can't just say some of the raunchy shit? Like if there's somebody who's gonna be appointed, you know, in the context of this podcast, you guys are looking to me as the guy because I'm the one who edits it and produces it and all that shit. Like maybe yeah, I would be the one to make the decision to censor something. But it only affects 4 people. You have somebody like who sits at the helm of 330 million people and who actually is under Constitution to protect the First Amendment. If you sit in the political office, you have to protect the First Amendment. But by
government.
I know. If you're sitting in a position to protect that, but also hypocritically in contrast, you're to be the one to like say who is allowed to say what.
You have very quickly and accidentally hit the train tracks conundrum, my friend.
Go ahead, fine.
The train tracks conundrum of, well, it's only a few people. Say, for example, you had you know, do you kill 1 person or 4? Do you kill 1 person or 1,000,000? Which one's morally correct?
Oh, just 1 person. You're affecting a significantly less amount of people by killing 1 person.
But what if that 1 person is your sister and the 4 people are rapists?
Okay.
There we go. And see, that's how it will always play out.
What if that 1 person is leading something and becomes a martyr?
What if they raped your worst enemy? So they're like a friend now because the enemy of your enemy.
Okay, fair enough. You guys.
And this is where the conundrum turns into pure numerical sense of treating people the way, to throw this quickly, the way that communists do, as robots, compared to looking at people as individuals and see how they actually contribute that way. Now, that's not any moralistically better, but it actually creates a more distinct problem. You can censor a few people fine, but isn't any more justifiable than censoring millions or the reverse.
No, the principle still stands. I agree. You've caught me you painted me into a corner, and I concur. So no, it's not. It's not my place. But in the same vein as like owning, like a corporation owning something, like they can do whatever they want with it. This is my podcast. I can do whatever I want with it. There's also that. Man, morally, no, I don't think it's right to censor people. But under my jurisdiction, I'm allowed to do so. Just like when companies own. See, if companies one thing, but then you give that power to somebody. You know, if the company's called the United States of America, what happens?
Now that's a whole conversation of turning the government into a corporate entity.
Yeah, but if you're talking about appointing 1 guy to censor the United States, which apparently is a real thing. What was that? What was Joe Biden's whole thing on that? Someone brought that up earlier. They have like the king of truth or something. What was it?
They're having a misinformation head, which everyone is jokingly calling the minister of truth.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So now that's like a real possibility, and you know, it's not just gonna affect yes, Vlad, thank you. It's not just affecting social media platforms. It's actually affecting people outside of the internet, actual lives. So we will talk more about censorship. And the way it
Zoom
impacts
is censoring us right now.
Zoom is censoring our time. Man, we're just throwing the word censor around like willy-nilly.
Well, it's because we can't afford to say what we want for as long as we want.
That's true. Well, because
we're too poor to have free speech. That's going to be the new forward. That's the new capitalism.
Oh, I like where your head's at.
Just like the fast lane, you can say what you want and drive as fast as you want.
Yeah,
God damn, it must be nice to have money.
And if you don't understand that reference, you can see where that episode is right here, if it exists at this time. But anyway, more on censorship right after this commercial break. Stay tuned. Does This Offend You is absolutely, definitely, and undoubtedly brought to you by this 100% totally real sponsor.
All right, people. I feel like there's some information out there that not many people are aware of, and I would know this because of my profession, so I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't think many people know how to floss right, so I am going to use this dummy to show y'all how to floss the right way. Now, this is going to get a little complicated, but bear with me. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to take a long piece of floss. Don't be stingy with it, all right? I know we're all Jews, but even we know what's important here. And that is gingivitis. So now I'm going to take this dummy mouth and put it in my mouth, okay? Hold it like this. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you how to floss, because none of you know how to do it. Open your mouth. See that? Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to... You see how I wrap around my fingers? Right? I want you to use your thumb and other fingers to manipulate the floss. You're going to go up into the teeth right there. That's cutting an eraser. You put it in the eraser. And you're going to wrap the floss around one tooth, go up and down, like a C. Oh, this hurts. C formation. Okay? Then you're going to go towards the other tooth, C formation, and go up and down. And you're going to snuff it out. Oh, snuff it out. Alright? Now, some people have issues getting in the back. Now, because I use Joey teeth. Joey teeth make it easy. So now you're gonna grab your heart. Use your fingers to manipulate it. You gotta get your back. See how? And pull it out, and your teeth are clean. Say goodbye, periodontitis. And that, my friends, is how you avoid gingivitis. Back to you, Danny.
That was a public service announcement and a way to play Chubby Bunny.
My teeth hurt.
God
that was...
damn, dude. I almost want to censor that from my brain. That was fucking horrifying. That's terrible.
The fact that you look like a horse, too, with the freaking teeth like that.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, I had to show you guys. I don't know how else to show you. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Danny, you did not move at all while that was happening. Now I realize you're having, like, Vietnam flashbacks. Yeah. And now I'm worried about the dental hygiene you've had in your life.
Oh man, I mean, I've had 12 cavities, and I did that in the span of like in 2 years, I think. So, no, the dentist was never fun for me, and I really hate Omid for bringing that up.
You know what? You know what's fucked up? I forgot, and I had this memory to look in the mirror a couple days ago. When I was a kid in Canada, I got into a fight with another kid. He hit me, and I bit him. And because I bit him, they took me to the dentist and shaved my canines down.
Jesus.
Wow.
That's a thing. Yeah,
that's censorship.
I don't know if you can see it.
Huh.
Yeah, holy shit.
So do you eat meat or do you just stick to vegetables now? What's your deal?
Oh, I just suck tits now.
Oh, that works.
It's a good thing we have Omid, who's a dentist, on the show. Great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing you don't suck dicks. If I know anything about when it becomes toothy, no.
Oh, I could explain so much in both directions on why
Jesus
that
Christ.
can be fixed.
Both directions, then penis and asshole, or what?
Oh, sucking and receiving. I got you, man. I can tell you
okay.
all about it.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So, is
I'm your
better
resident queer. Give me anything you got.
As someone who does suck without your canines, is it a little bit more like a safety net for if it does get a little toothy or what?
No, like the canines kind of lead it in, you know? Like you get a little bit of outline and you know how to lead it through there. Those never poke. It's really the top teeth. You got to really work your tongue into like a bowl.
I gotta ask, what the fuck are we talking about right now?
We're talking about sucking dick, Vlad. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's
about?
Vlad
on,
again
man.
coming in with the big censor. No,
Hey,
Vlad, we
man.
can talk about whatever we want on this podcast.
Don't queer shame me, man.
Ah.
Anyway,
continue.
I will suck dick on your show.
Can we
That's
continue?
perfectly all right. Yeah, please. If you want to, go right ahead, and I will not censor.
I want to hear this explanation. So it's the top teeth and the bottom. So it's like the incisors where the discomfort comes.
Yeah, it's this. So it's That's what everyone messes up with. You gotta rock your tongue on the bottom half, and then you gotta let the top of your throat really get the rest of it. The hard part is making sure the top teeth don't scrape. The bottom you can work with the tongue. The top teeth are the problem.
Interesting. Is it because of the inclination of the bottom teeth?
It's usually someone inexperienced enough to want to really give it their all. It's really, if you want to really get that, you got to really own that shape. A lot of people, when they start, it's just, it's not enough. You got to really get into it. Otherwise, and if no one says anything, you're gonna get someone who's like a fucking fucking skin shaver for years and years.
Oh,
no one says a word, and it's painful, and you just get over it. And I'm uncut, so that shit's especially sensitive. But if you don't got skin, you're just gonna lose part of your fucking shaft, bro.
Right. Do you have to change your technique if they have a hook dick? Like
Yes!
if it turns?
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. Oh,
Wow.
Vlad, you don't know this. There are some people I've met that are fucking candy canes, dude. Like it's a straight that. And you just gotta get it through there. Or just have like a big fucking opening, you know?
Wouldn't it have been easier if you got upside down and let it go down your esophagus or something? Like a smooth transition in, or...
If you want a really good go back, it's easier with the teeth issue. Lay on your back and have someone get like balls on your eyes kind of situation.
Right, make them do all the work because it's their fucked up penis.
Yeah, they know it's fucked up. They gotta work with their own fucking candy can land situation.
All right, good to know.
Candy cane land situation.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm bi, so I know both worlds. This is where this is coming from. Although, just to make you aware, none of you are my type. Except Vlad. He knows he's my type.
That was kind of hurtful, but okay. I don't know if it's supposed to be comforting, but
no,
I guess I can check that off my box.
No, it's interesting. I've never known how to say that without sounding insulting.
It's really
I don't know
hard.
how. I don't know how to. No, I don't know.
Well, Vlad's my type. He's just Jewish.
He's mine too. He's just such a big. When he has his beard too. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Danny's giving me some of those vibes right now, but it's just Vlad's height that gets me.
I just want to anger fuck Danny.
So does everyone else. Get in line.
So we were talking about government
It's because
censorship.
you're Muslim, right?
No,
What?
absolutely not. But yeah, where's this fucking crazy train headed? All right, yeah, censorship. Where the fuck were we talking
This
about?
crazy
before?
train is heading down Chase's throat.
Yeah.
Censor this, bitches.
All
I
right.
think some semen just fell out.
So
Oh shit! Again? Fuck! Wait. Hold on.
Yeah, there's a boat in there, not a train.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
I'm ready for fatherhood.
okay. So before we went into that commercial break, then the 5 to 10 minutes of just disturbance after that commercial break, we were talking about censorship, and I think I led with the idea that like America is about to head into this weird dystopian reality where there's one guy in charge of censoring this country. We don't have to talk about that 100%, but I am interested if anyone would like to talk about this Biden concoction. I have no idea. Or Vlad, since you seem so fucking interested in this podcast, I don't know. Where's this conversation headed? Because we talked about corporations.
No, I was actually, the reason why I was looking away is because I was trying to Google different, I guess, countries and empires in their history have also had similar situations like the Ministry of Truth thing that we have going on here currently. And I was trying to actually look up what they were and what they were called and how that worked out for them in the past.
I have a question then to lay this in. Do you think that this is because if we have a Minister of Truth, that's not the name. It's going to be the disinformation minister or head, whatever. It feels exactly the same.
Truth Cop.
Truth Cop.
Dude,
RoboCop, Truth Cop.
Do you know what?
And she's a theater major who also has politics. So I would love her to go down the street doing like fucking Pippin and then fucking like zapping people with rays. Like, you can't talk. Not my style. Not enough gay. I would love that.
Does anybody know what the reference to Ministry of Truth actually is?
Isn't that Harry
Is it a
Potter?
Harry Potter thing?
Yeah, Harry Potter. Mhm.
No, it's
What?
a notion
Yeah.
from the book 1984.
Yep.
Nah, Harry
That's
Potter.
where it's referred. Not
Nah,
Harry
okay,
Potter.
1984. Yeah, I get it.
So here's the question then. What I was going to pose is: do you think that this is a censorship authority built off of creating malicious authority of power, or do you think it is a creation of fear of losing power?
I think it's
understand the
authority of
distinction.
creating. I think it's creating power because you're essentially giving a government entity the capability to publicly denounce and essentially silence anyone who they disagree with.
No, I think anytime our rights are infringed upon by the government, it's themselves giving them more power because the Bill of Rights was invented as something that the government's supposed to protect, and for them to take certain rights away is just them taking more power. Pretty much, this is the government filling up the swamp again, and we're getting screwed over by it.
The swamp.
Yeah.
What was
No
the
more Pepe memes.
what was the catalyst for this? Was it the whole was it COVID and like how there's the whole Facebook issue, or what
Wasn't just
prompted
Facebook.
what? Yeah, it wasn't just Facebook, but was it like, was that the catalyst to all of this?
I
This
think it's
administration?
a mixture of the COVID situation and trying to get that under control. I think partially it's utilizing the Russia disinformation attack because that's fallen apart all over the place. But I think, and they're still using it, so I think that might be a useful of if we just blame other groups, other countries, any terrorist organization we want, we can seem like we're not viable. Like he's doing that right now, saying that the entire inflation cycle is to blame on Putin, the Putin price hikes, which is just partially sure, but that's absurd for how much the inflation charts have grown.
Inflation started before the war went on.
And then I'd say there's a third one, which is the very, very vicious nature of micro and macro gay rights conversations that are happening, especially with trans people right now, trans children especially.
Is that a thing? Wow.
Yeah. Also, if you don't know the difference between macro and micro conversations in the gay community, the difference is mainly macro is just, hey man, we're just gay, leave me alone. Labels are fine, whatever, but we just want to come together, just treat us like everybody else, leave us alone. Micro is, look, we all have these backgrounds, and I want you to understand that I have a specific difference from this person. I am this gender, this fluidity, this gender orientation. I want you to recognize things about me, and I want you to recognize and respect me for the differences that I have. There's the mixture difference. And one's old school, like anyone over the age of 40 tends to be more macro, and micro is much more the younger generation.
Yep, or someone who's been gay a lot longer will just be like, just let me be. Versus someone who's just discovering it and they're still going through their transition into whatever spectrum makes them feel the most unique. They're the ones that are going to be out there advertising it and shit.
And it's causing a lot of havoc, It's understandable.
To their
but
genitals.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's the children's especially.
Their genitals are getting mutilated for this, and it's kind of funny, but not really.
Yeah, so there's so many political fire examples that are causing this to happen. But I do think that COVID is probably the big one, because if that narrative falls in the wrong direction, every economic example will fly back in Biden's face and ruin his entire presidency's reputation more than it already probably is going at its current rate. I think he could lose all the other battles. This is the big one. But it's important to note the others.
Right. In a very similar podcast, we did talk about how what the fuck was it? Goddamn. Now I'm drawing a blank, and it's very embarrassing. That's right. So we talked about how if you are to have somebody like this minister of truth or whatever, it's under the guise of protecting our freedom, protecting this right to free speech, etc. What we mentioned before was that like these like Omid begrudgingly brought up earlier, is Fauci putting like the proverbial putting a mask on somebody to try to protect the country. Using like this disinformation from Russia, or trying to diffuse this macro versus micro argument. It in essence, all of this is just trying to protect the citizens of this country. Is that something you agree with, or is this just like a power play? Are we actually operating under the understanding that all this is trying to help this country?
I think you laid it out really good to make it perfectly described with the same problem I have with Twitter. It's the hypocrisy. The fact that we know that everything they're saying, they're doing the opposite and somewhere else. It means more. It means more in this case. For a corporation to lie, I can just walk away. I can't walk away from the U.S. government.
You can go back
That
to
feeling is
Canada.
completely different. I can leave. I can leave, but basically,
I can
based
go to
on-
Russia technically.
Yeah.
But now Canada, I now learned, can just destroy my bank account without judicial reasoning. So I don't know if I really want to go back there right now.
Understandable. I wouldn't want to either. So
And you're not Jewish.
thanks.
True, I'm always a little more free than all of you. That's fair.
And less hated.
I'm white, so depends on which group I'm with.
So are most Jews that the media portrays.
That's true. Whoopi Goldberg said it's just whites versus whites.
I love it.
See, Jews are white now. Welcome.
So is it?
Man, that sucks. I lose victim points.
Omid, I think there's a problem since you're not very white.
Yeah, but you know, I'm Aryan, so what are you gonna do?
I think you
Are
guys
you,
have.
though?
Yeah, man, Aryan means Iranian. Literally, that's like the Nazi party convinced the Persian Empire to change their name back to Iran because they were the original Aryans. They're the Third Reich. They're the third strongest dynasty that ever existed. So they were the original Third Reich, and that's what the Nazis wanted to like be. So I'm Aryan, motherfucker.
Are you trying to say Reich? Yeah. Anyway.
Hey,
Right?
you had the
Right?
right. Yeah, see just don't remove the context. Perfect, and that is what censorship does to you.
He had the Reich idea. Boom!
Got him.
Got him, Jews.
All right. So back
Yeah,
to what Chase was saying. So you were saying that in the context of the United States, it's much more detrimental to play around with the idea of censoring people over a corporation like Twitter. Is that what
absolutely.
you understand? Okay.
I can turn off Twitter.
Yeah.
I can't stop paying taxes without someone coming to my door with a gun and telling me I gotta fix my shit up.
Absolutely correct. Now, is this is this related to the diverging train argument at all? Because now one context isn't affecting as many people, but the principles still stand.
That's fair,
Yeah.
but I think it's interesting to note that in this mechanism, put it in this way, it's the difference of someone who is able to flip the switch off the train and someone who's on the train, and he's looking at someone else who's going to flip the switch for them. With Twitter, I'm on the ground and I can flip the switch. In the government, I'm on the train, he's going to make me kill them, and it's his choice, and I have to live with it.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Cool.
Dark.
Yeah. Well, I'm not bringing it up.
Yeah,
to
make
try-
that funny.
Yeah. Where's Omid's quick quip?
Oh, man, I'm surprised you didn't say anything about Infinity Train.
No.
I mean, the jokes were already made. Why would I repeat jokes? I'm not lame.
He's a professional, Vlad.
Yeah, I get paid nothing for this.
Yeah, like a true
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah, like a true comedian.
Okay. So we all agree censoring is bad for the United States.
No,
Pretty
it's great for comedians.
great for
We
comedians.
agree on that too. Yeah.
It's great for the health of the nation, but which is good because comedians are not healthy. They're all kind of messed up in some way. So the more unhealthy things get, the happier they're going to be at the end of the day.
They're attention whores.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
be real.
If the world was great, we wouldn't have comedians.
So
Yeah,
do you think? So, what are your thoughts on when people try to censor comedians like Dave Chappelle?
I think that's stupid, and I think people need to get a sense of humor and shut the fuck up. That's my opinion.
Whatever
I
happened
think
with Netflix in that whole entire situation?
nothing. Okay, but my opinion on censorship in that regard is that I think when it comes to comedy, what's really sad is people want to censor comedy and they want to treat it as hate speech when in reality, I think at the core of comedy, you understand a topic to a degree where you can make fun of it, and it's almost like an appreciation for it. In another sense, you're saying it for the sake of making people laugh, to make people happy. So your end goal is essentially the opposite of what you're being accused of doing. I think anybody who gets offended by comedy, again, we talked about it from the podcast before, you're just trying to be butthurt and you're trying to put yourself on some kind of pedestal over somebody else so that you can somehow gain some kind of victimhood points. And I think that's stupid because at the end of the day, someone who's saying something as a joke, they just want to make people happy and laugh. They look at things in the world that are very absurd, and I'm sorry if your reality is absurd, but people who take things too seriously, kind of absurd.
Yeah. And what's the who is the guy from Seinfeld? Who
Kramer,
Kramer?
right?
The Kramer example is perfect
Michael
to
Richards?
explain. Yeah, well, yeah, but Kramer's a great example to explain the mindset of a comedian, the mindset of a normal person. A normal person saw what Kramer did and went, "Yeah, obviously, get the fuck off the stage. How fucking dare you?" But then I think I'm stealing this from I think Joe Rogan or was it Bill Burr, where he said, "I was watching that, I thought that dude's having a bad set."
Yeah.
Like in the context of comedy, it always should be appreciated as everything here is in a setting of we're just gonna try some stuff. No one's gonna walk away with a book on how to do this. Even when the comedian says, "Hey, when you go home tonight, remember this." It's like they're not gonna give you a pamphlet. Go and also go to our meeting tomorrow because we're gonna start a revolution, brother. That's like, even if it is political comedy that tries to do that, you don't have to take it seriously. You don't,
Yeah.
and it should never be taken seriously unless you know. You know what I will say. Political comedy is the line in the same way that like activism journalism is a line where you should treat it just like journalism. You should treat that comedy just like comedy, but you can tell when they're trying to really like give you something to do in a very specific way, but it's still in the same, it should still be treated in the same light as, hey, you know, have a laugh. Trevor Noah might be telling you how to vote, but he's not funny, so it doesn't matter.
But here's the thing. I think there's a difference though, because when you're talking about journalism, journalism is supposed to be pursuit of the truth. So if you present something that's not true and then run with it, I think that's an issue. Also, another problem with journalism is that with some of facts, but not the whole story, and then followed by an opinion is also not really news. It's literally pushing an agenda. And that's kind of the trend we've been seeing recently whenever something is reported is here's this fact, here's this partial fact, and here's our opinion on it because we're going to blow it up without sharing the entire context. That's why it's almost imperative for people to get the whole story. You have to watch the news from different perspectives because you're not going to get the story anywhere anymore. You're only going to get the clip that they want you to hear and their opinion on it, and that's the majority of the piece. It's their opinion.
And you nailed it too, which is with that. You may realize that I was completely wrong with that. It's the whole problem with journalism is the fact that they're trying to become entertainers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. The
Because it's
entertainer can have an
BuzzFeed,
opinion.
HuffPo.
The fun of an entertainer, the fun of a comedian is their opinion. If
It's not factual. It's from the basis of I'm just an entertainer. Don't take anything I say seriously. But then you have people like Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert. I don't want to say Jon Stewart because I think Jon Stewart had probably the best finesse. Him and Bill Maher, I think, had really good finesse.
His new show is kind of, he raked himself over the fucking coals with the problem with white people. That segment was a mess.
Right, but I think Jon Stewart and Bill Maher, I think, do a really good job of it because sometimes you don't know where they stand because they'll jump from aisle to aisle, and I think that's where you can see the true humor coming in versus Stephen Colbert nowadays. You know, back in the day he was good, but nowadays it's all one-sided. What's his face? Trevor Noah, it's all one-sided. We don't see two sides anymore. We just see their opinions, and they push the stories without telling the full story. And I'm like, we get it. You're an entertainer, and you can hide behind that, but there's nothing funny when we can see that this is truly like you're pushing some kind of an agenda now.
Yeah, and then you get shows like The View who are like, hey, we should cancel everybody that doesn't think like us. You get CNN, MSNBC, morning shows, you get Fox shows, you get everyone that's trying to throw in personalities over the news constantly. I mean, this was happening back in the day, but so much worse now. It's so much worse now.
So my question is, I get the comedian aspect now. I'm going to ask is, what do we do with, in regards to situations where censorship doesn't occur, and then we have shit shows happening from that? Prime example being the January 6th situation where, you know, there was a lot of that notion being spread that, hey, like the election was stolen, or even in religion where you have religious leaders who may not follow the actual proper religion, but they preach their ideals, which in fact, you know, creates extremism, which in turn brings out, you know, shit happens. So my question is, How do you justify a situation where censorship isn't really present and then things just start getting out of hand?
I think that's where education becomes important. I think if people are taught how to think and not what to think, they can take any information in, analyze it on their own, form their own opinion based on their own life experiences, and move on. But nowadays, when you're told what to think, you hear something that's the opposite of what you thought to be true, and you just start to resist mentally, and that causes a lot of stress. Oh, that's not true. This is true. And then, like, what's your biggest fear? That you might have been wrong? I think now people are so afraid of losing or being wrong that they'll just defend it to the teeth, and you're just like, dude, chill out. It's not that big of a deal. Why do you care so much? Because this, and that. Okay, well, if you want evidence, here it is. So why are you still freaking out? Like, this is just reality. Why do you care? Because it's not my reality. Oh, okay, so your reality is more important. Yes, it is. And you're wrong, and you're a hater. You're a anti-vaxxer. Whoa. Chill, bro.
I like your voice interpretations there.
Oh, he was
Thanks,
full
man.
Karen.
Yeah. Because people are stupid, and that's the beauty of comedy, because you look at them and you're just like, I mean that's what I appreciate about comedians though. Like, for the most part, they're just philosophers. They look at life and they tell you how they view the world. I'm not talking about people that are loudmouthed or whatever. Like, people that do social commentary, their philosophers are looking at the world and just kind of laughing at it. That's why Bill Burr is just such a legend, or even Louis C.K. Like, these people are so good at viewing the world in such a different light, whether it be from a place of darkness, from a place of comedy, but you can see how they view the world, and it's just funny. It just happens to be funny.
You know, this is a really good tie-in back to our very first episode that we did about
Thank you.
podcasts.
Yeah, you did. You beat me to it. Sorry.
I was gonna chime you
Danny
in
was
next.
shaking like, I got it.
I wanted to chime you next in on this because I remember that podcast topic and how we talked about, does everybody deserve to have a voice? Should we allow, like, no censorship at all, essentially? And I want to see your take at this point.
Yeah. So everything that Omid was saying, the very first, when I hear the word, all you have to do is educate people, my mind turns off, because that's always like been the answer. Like, oh, all you have to do is make people not stupid, and that's never gonna happen. That's just human nature. It's just
Yes.
Yeah, so we talked about this in the very first podcast. In fact, we touched on censorship without even knowing we'd come to this episode. But does everybody really deserve to have a voice? Whether it be a podcast or be on TV or like whatever, Trevor Noah in front of a microphone in front of thousands, hundreds, millions of people, if you're the president or some officiant, I have no idea. Whatever, in the office, I don't care. Like, what, at a wedding, I don't give a shit. Like, does everybody deserve to have some sort of fucking voice? And
I remember listening to that, and
Yeah.
I disagree with all of you at the same time. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, please, now that we're here again, I mean, to even tie it back further to what, like, I'm trying to go back to Vlad's original question. He's like, how do you like censor somebody who's inciting a riot?
How do you combat the situation that gets out of hand when there's no censorship?
Yeah, and then who deems that out of hand? Really, because it's back to the whole thing. Like, who's the minister of truth, whatever. Like, who's gonna tell you that's too much?
Minestrone of truth.
Minestrone, sure. Who's gonna tell you that it was too much? Whatever happens, if it's a riot, for instance, is it justified because it's all a bunch of people expressing, violent acts? Sure, that's one thing. But like, what came before that was just an expression was just someone's ideas. Oh, I think we should do this and that. And, it's up to the people, the masses of dumb people. I'll give you that, who are uneducated and have, they're just taking things in without any of their own opinions. They can't formulate it. It's just one-to-one. It's someone's mouth and then someone else's actions. And that can't be helped if you don't have education. Yeah, if you
Fuck.
Exactly. So, if you understand it the way I like to think
Call
about
back, motherfucker.
Yes, we get it. Ha ha teeth. Okay, so if you can't,
Uh,
if
No,
people
not
can't-
until you try it.
got me there. I haven't tried it yet. So, yeah,
I'll
so-
appreciate that answer.
yeah. If you can't prevent these people's actions, like in so much as they can't prevent their own actions, then yeah, how do you stop something like as violent as a riot or an insurrection from happening?
I have a thought on that.
Go ahead.
which
Yes,
is,
please dissect us.
I think the misunderstanding of an answer to that is to think that there is a concrete way to even approach that. If you think that we could have stopped January 6th with any sort of as an example, we could have stopped it with any sort of censorship of the information, if we could have stopped some beforehand of getting there, if we could have hidden the whole thing happening, you can't stop a child from breaking a knee if he's going to ride a bike. You can't stop a child from hurting himself when he climbs a tree. You can't stop a nation of people learning together from making mistakes. If you try and censor too much, they will fight back because you won't let them be free. But unfortunately, with freedom comes a bit of breaking stuff.
Very well put. But
if you censor too much, they will lose their minds or lose everything that they were in the beginning.
I agree on the concept of, as we love to say on this podcast all the time, it's all a case-by-case scenario, I guess. But in the end, still, honestly, I don't even have an answer for it. Honestly, I just feel like there needs to be some sort of precautionary stance, because, again, I'm not saying that I support censorship, but at the same time, we live in a world of some crazy fucking people out there. And whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's just walking around high out of your mind yelling random shit as a homeless person, people do things, and if they get a nice crowd of people to listen to them, they can use that power to cause damage, mayhem, problems.
You know, this might be hyper simplifying it, but I think there's something nice about it. Is with the kid in the bike example, because the government is your parent in a weird way. You don't want to look at your government as your parent, but they're and if you look at it in a very weird light, they are.
This is getting hot. Keep going.
Yeah, I like that, daddy gov and mommy truth. If you have to find the balance with everyone. If you let your kid go on a bike without any padding or protection, he's going to get hurt. It's just going to happen. If you let him go out covered in bubble wrap because you don't want him to get hurt at all, he can't ride the bike.
And he's not going to have friends.
But we cannot... Yeah, because fuck that kid. Fucking Bubble Bob. If you want the kid to ride the bike, but he's going to have to take a risk, we all know, put a couple pads on, follow a couple of rules, but have fun. You have to find that balance of it. I think censorship is a great example of overprotecting someone. We're worried that you're going to get something that we don't want you to hear. That's always the argument too. We're worried you're going to get hurt, so we don't want you to go down this path if we can stop you. But if you don't let someone explore that path, any of these paths ever, we're always told, no, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. They can never decide on their own. I think Omid was saying that, or Danny was saying that. But if you can't let someone decide for themselves, they'll never learn to decide for themselves.
So what if they make a decision, but it's not the right one, and they're stuck on it, and they're stubborn as shit, and they start becoming dangerous?
That's where revolutions are for.
That's where, like, I think I brought it up when I was like, teach someone how to think.
Can you really teach somebody how to think, though? People are fucking dumb.
Well, actually, there's a whole argument with literacy with children that to the 4th grade, we teach them how to read, and then past the 4th grade, we teach them how to understand what they read. The problem with the literacy rate with children in this country and around the world is that it's dropped to nearly 75% illiteracy rates everywhere for children.
Because no child is left behind. Woo!
Yeah, no, they're all left behind. Fuck them all. But
fuck them kids.
We held them all back is the problem.
Fuck them kids.
Yeah. But that's the problem. If you have an illiteracy rate to 4th grade and you haven't kept up, you're gonna just be trying to learn how to read while everyone else is understanding. So you could be almost in high school by the time you even start to understand what you're reading. And it could be too late to really formulate things well. Now that could be almost an, a social evolution argument for how we can never do that. But I think there's more hope than that.
Question: how do we handle or tackle media censorship? And when I say media censorship, I mean like the information that's provided to the people by the media, whether it's true, false, partially true, partially false, completely out of this fucking world.
I have a bad argument for this, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Encourage people to do their due diligence and find more than one source.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Doesn't agree. Yeah. But again, that's encouraging people to do their own research, but people are not only stupid, but they're lazy. Somebody's going to read a headline that they saw in a Facebook article, and that's just the news, that whole title. And I've seen some articles with the titles the way they were presented, and I actually read some of these articles, and best example is anything that revolves around Joe Rogan. And if you read the article, you'll see that the article can sometimes have a very moderate standing or even like have justification for the things that Joe Rogan would say or do. But based on the title alone, you think you know where that article is going, and you can tell the person who posted it didn't read it.
But here's the other thing that you have to notice with society. Have you noticed like people who go on Facebook and share an article, whether they read it or not, and then you get that response, or another person shares and says, "Oh, look at this guy. He's a real freaking investigator. Went on Facebook, went on Google, found information that contradicts what a guy with a 10-year degree in whatever fucking medical field has to say that they're wrong."
Yeah, that's the same thing as the black community and really poor black communities have when someone tries to educate themselves and they say, "Man, you're talking white," or you get that in Hispanic communities too, where like if someone tries to educate themselves in something, everyone makes fun of them for doing so. That's a cultural issue in that area, but it doesn't mean that person can't get out of it.
But the question here is too is what they're pointing out is that you're going against a factually known individual who studied those 10 years, knows what they're talking about, and they're talking about something that honestly, as COVID, we don't really know much about. We're kind of, or at least maybe now we know more, but before we didn't really know anything. We were kind of picking at straws with it. But if you question the intellect or information from a confirmed,
Fauci, fuck it.
yeah, exactly, Fauci, as an example, as a renowned scientist for doing this, and that, and you don't agree with him, you're a naysayer, you're a conspiracy theorist, of course you went and did your own research online because you're just that smart, that type of guy. And that kind of, I mean...
To be fair, I've seen a lot of people post a lot of science articles as if it was the new fact of life about COVID. And then you'll see that it wasn't something that was even published, but people were still posting it. Or like, one example is I remember my brother used to be big on posting things about COVID. And multiple times I've called him out. And looking into the future now, I was right every single time he posted something that was bullshit, and I decided to call it out. And then he stopped sharing things because there was a point where he posted something about some article, I remember, that the science was going to get published, but you can tell based on just the abstract alone that it was a political hit piece. And then multiple people, not including me, were just like, this is bullshit, this is stupid, like you can see that this science is very faulty and whatever. 2 days later, the scientific community said, "Oh, we're reviewing it, and that article was bullshit." Boom, again, right again. So sometimes somebody can post something they think is true, but if they're not going to be super critical, you can tell that they were posting something because they wanted to believe it versus actually knowing your facts and doing the research. Like, I know a decent amount about microbiology, virology, and immunology to the point where anytime something that came up that was bullshit, I called it out immediately. And the thing is, I was like, look, I don't know, but this is what I do know, and this doesn't line up with what we already know to be fact of life. But the thing is, nobody wants to listen to that. And I've seen you post things too, Vlad. You shared a bunch of bullshit articles about there being 60 variants in the first 2 days of COVID.
Yeah, you're fucking disgusting, Vlad.
I'm just saying, like, everybody does it, and they're all prone to making mistakes like that.
No, that's
But
what
the
happens
thing
when
is, like-
that's what happens when you don't know something about a certain subject. And I remember the reason why I'm also asking is, I don't know if you remember, I posted an article a while back. It was a doctor who, I guess, went to a community meeting in his town, and he brought up the aspect of like the vaccine, whether it would work or not with COVID. And he brought up like how we've had vaccines in the past. First off, he's like, we've never had a vaccine for anything that's been respiratory illness oriented. This is a first of its kind, never existed before. So for us to, come out swinging saying this is going to work for sure, we know 100%, like, what are you basing it off of? If it's the first of its kind. Number two, he was talking about how certain diseases like smallpox, for instance, and whatnot, he mentioned that vaccines generally work because a certain pathogen, specifically an illness, only passes.
So you were saying pathogen and illness.
So what I was trying to say is that according to this doctor, he's like, our vaccines in the past that we've had originally were uh vaccines are supposed to target illnesses that are supposed to, generally pass through humans to a human to human interaction only. The problem with COVID, from what we were being told before, was that COVID was passing through not just humans, it was passing through other animals as well, which means that every time, a disease passes through you or whatever, whoever else, it mutates. That means that if you were hypothetically to vaccinate all of humanity, that's cool and all, but that doesn't stop the COVID-19 from mutating because it still has other hosts of different species to mutate further. Which, I mean, those were little things that he brought that kind of made me go like, huh, that's interesting. And I remember afterwards going online, just seeing responses online of people writing, oh, this guy's completely wrong for a million reasons, without really getting any sort of actual argument, just saying, oh, we've had data for 10, 20 years already. They've been collecting from like Vietnam and all this stuff. And I'm kind of like, cool, but you're not addressing what he specifically outlined for you is as the issue in your logic.
So this leads to what we kind of brought it back earlier. I think this, you also, with everything we talked about, I think it made me realize something. I think because one of the problems we have with censorship is trying to find out what's the right answer, right? Like, what is the right thing, so we can try to remove the stuff that's not right, so we can focus on the good stuff. And that's kind of the way it progresses. Being able to access information like what Vlad's saying or anything else, whether it be right, wrong, whether it was just exploration of it, I think when you create a censorious society, you remove the ability for other people to put in their vote on what they think is right. So if you make a bad decision, that's logged in, that's how we look at it. If someone comes up with a better idea, well, we can't talk about that. It's been decided. That's the good thing. Anything else is bad because we decided on the good thing. This is where I think one of the best defenses against censorship, where you can possibly even create a healthy censorship society, if you have partial censorship at all, is you have to have competition. And I think that's inherently a problem with many governments where you have a single source of authority, which is what censorship tries to do. We have a single source of authority. We say what's right. If you go away from the message, you're endangering the public health. If you have competition in messaging, you have competition in economics, you have competition in the way things go. This isn't necessarily a defense to capitalism, because capitalism doesn't always have true competition. As long as you have competing views, people talking, people allowed to be wrong, people allowed to compete with their thoughts. If people can make mistakes, then everyone's going to have wrong information. As long as the competition's there, you can at least try and find it. With censorship, you can only learn what's true to one person. It's the my truth situation. This is our government's truth. This is my truth. And it will be yours. And if you don't agree, well, we do have guns.
Excellent job, Chase. Way to hone it in there. So,
I try to help you a bit, Danny.
yeah, we are running out of time, but any final thoughts on censorship?
What I was gonna say is, lastly, is I tried to look up the story and I couldn't find it, but there was back in the day we had heart disease was on the rise in the United States, and one of the presidents, I forgot which one it was, had a heart attack in office. So he manned together a team to find out what caused the heart attack. A scientist came in. He cherry-picked his data, and he blamed heart disease on people being fat, like actually eating fat off of meat and whatnot. And he said that is solely to blame for the rise of heart disease in this country. Another scientist who was also very famous, not as quite as famous as this guy, came in and said, actually, after looking at the data, it's not fat, it's sugar. Sugar is the cause of heart disease. The first scientist essentially was very super, he's like, you're wrong, fuck you. Discredited this guy, and the second scientist entirely. The second scientist died thinking he was wrong. The first one became even more famous, and he got a Nobel Peace Prize for his discovery on fat causing heart disease. Later, of course, we found out that sugar actually was the cause of it, and we found out the guy who was the first scientist, he was getting investments from the sugar industry into his data that he was mining for his information, because who wouldn't want to invest in a scientist who can provide information that could back their sourcing and ideals? Yeah. Well, I guess at the end of the day, a lot of the science that we have is gonna it needs investment, and a lot of the time you're gonna have somebody who wants to invest in you, hoping that you get them a certain type of result, and if you don't give them that result, they might pull their funding.
Well, that's why it's always important that if you do look up any kind of data or scientific paper, do your due diligence and see who funded the research. Like if Pfizer funded all the research for vaccines and all of a sudden, boom, they're pumping out a vaccine and this is their research on it, I'm gonna be skeptical. Like that's just how life works, but most people don't do that.
But you don't question that. That goes against the grain.
Right, and that's the beauty of society. So whatever, people are gonna be dumb. I don't think anything should be censored, but I do think there needs to be more of an open forum for people to be able to talk and discuss things. Problem is, there's so much misinformation out there that you can find evidence for literally anything these days, and that's what makes the internet very dangerous. Is that if you want to live in a bubble, you are more than welcome to, and it can be perpetuated no problem. And the problem is too that if people don't want to be challenged, they can easily avoid anything that challenges their thought process. I don't have any problems with Google refining my searches to the things that I want to see, but I think that in a way it could be harmful for someone that might need a reality check, but it's not my place either. If somebody wants to do their due diligence and specifically look up opposing arguments, that's their choice. If they want to live in a bubble, that's their choice too, and it's not my place to tell someone how to live their life. I don't care.
It's fair. Well, I think I've said everything on my end. How about you guys?
I have one last phrase if you want it.
Go ahead, Chase.
Sure. The death of progress is censorship, but the competition of censorship to continue progress is competition itself.
Yeah. I mean, anything that you can polarize people with. If there's one thing that somebody is very passionate about, it's really easy to start the conversation of maybe this is right and that's wrong. I mean, one of the greatest examples is that back in the day, nobody questioned the ethics and morality of abortions. Even women getting or needing abortions were not celebrating it. And somehow we've devolved as a society where comedians are celebrating getting an abortion when you're essentially celebrating what people to this day still view as murder of a life. But now you're comparing, and this is a Louis C.K. joke, where either you look at a fetus and you see it as no different from a lump of shit, or it's a human life. But if you want to abort it and kill it and treat it like it's nothing, I think we've veered far from normalcy in the world. And that's fine. I love these creative ideas that are creating a conversation. But when the conversation is polarizing people and you're starting to see logic and critical thinking and common sense being thrown out the window, that's when you're starting to see a very concerning trend in society. I mean, like, look at the movement we have. The left is heavily advocating for women's rights, but then they're also heavily advocating for gender being fluid. That's absurd because you can't have both. Either gender is fluid and or both are the same already, and the problem is that people aren't acknowledging that there's no dichotomy there. That's just one minor example of something that's just absolutely stupid.
Yeah. And something to keep in mind as well is, because it's very important for censorship, another important phrase. The phrase, the most important thing I know is that I know nothing at all, is the most misunderstood phrase, one of the most misunderstood phrases in history. It is not a phrase saying that a man who knows nothing is wise. It's saying that a man who never thinks he knows anything for sure is wise.
Right. No,
You're wise if you always question if you're correct.
I feel like there was a simpler way to say that. I think it was like a man who knows nothing, or a man who knows everything knows nothing.
Yeah.
I think that was how I heard it.
The
Very
problem is
similar.
in our current times we have to expound more than ever before because
Well, it's because
the
people have a
poetry of the
reading-
past is so lost.
Well, that and because everybody has a reading level of a fourth grader. Is that what Vlad said?
No, it's more so that the terminology that was used back then is been the evolution of it has gone to the point where we have to do that. The meaning of these phrases is slightly different than when it was first uttered, even in translations, even 50
Right,
years
like
ago.
sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Now words are murder.
Now we have to censor people who say things like, "When are we bringing back slavery?"
Now I'm gonna leave us on a closing note.
How do
in
we to
Rush-
bring that back? Holy crap!
On a closing note, I will leave with this quote. It's a Russian quote that we have, and it goes, it goes with "Меньше знаешь, лучше спишь." It translates to, "The less you know, the better you sleep." So
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
thank
that's
you
an
very
argument for
much.
stupidity, but okay.
Yeah.
No, people. I think it's an argument that people are happier being stupid.
Yeah, censorship makes you happy. You don't know what's going on. You're fine.
Awesome.
There we go.
Did I need to know about Operation Paperclip? Nope. Do I know about it now? Yep. Does it
Do you
change
sleep
anything?
better?
Nope. I don't sleep any differently if I'm being honest.
Awesome. Well, that was a very, very long-winded closeout, but that will do it for another episode of Does This Offend You? That is Vlad, that is Omid, and that is our good friend
Johnny
Chase. Sorry, Chase. Thank you for being here today, Chase. Awesome to have you.
I'll be in court tomorrow, so just
Yeah,
You know.
very busy. You might see him next week if he has a break for us. But until then, this has been another great episode. Next week, we talk about right guard, underarm, pit staining, extreme defense, architect refresh. Am I saying that right? Yeah, and how it causes cancer, paid for by Gillette. Thanks for watching. See you next week.